You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. A podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I've both been hysterically laughing and maybe a little bit crying as I've prepped this episode. Okay, so here's the thing. We've all had crushes. When I was a kid, I was in love with Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block, Christian Slater, and my beloved River Phoenix, R.I.P. But I also had a crush on this boy in 6th grade. I wrote him one of those classic check the box if you like me notes, and it came back with the no checked. To say that it didn't hurt is ridiculous because I'm telling you about it 29 years later, for goodness sakes. And honestly, what about 11-year-old permed Alysa with her tight-rolled jeans, who was a little loud and obnoxious, loving on Joey McIntyre, was exactly not worthy of checking at least the maybe box. I've told this in in my classes for years when talking about being crushed by our crushes. Most frequently, the reaction is something like, boom, how rude, and he doesn't know what he's missing. Which I love because we're 11. So, like, what did two 11-year-olds offer each other anyway? Like, I got extra lunch money today for a Hostess apple pie. Want to split it? And I appreciate that my students have been that caring and protective of me, which I think reflects that we like and respect each other. And I would make jokes about it like, and then he never responded to my Facebook friend requests. But listen, he owed me nothing. Absolutely nothing. He didn't even need to respond to any sort of box. But he did. He told me how he felt, and the answer was no. I still tell the story in class, but I've added the last part because I think we spend too much time sensationalizing the friend zone, ignoring the inherent gender implications here, getting on the cases of rejectors, and hyping up those who are experiencing unrequited love. And today I'd like to get to the bottom of that. Sure, this topic has far more romantic tendencies, but there's a lot of friendship aspects as well. And I'd like to discuss how they relate to each other. Last week in the episode, Aren't We All Sons of Gods, Claire and I talked about her comfort book, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. You might remember I had to learn all about Greek mythology. My head hurt a little bit, but I did enjoy hearing about Percy and his female friend Annabeth. I was so happy that the story didn't focus on the friends quickly becoming interested in each other romantically, because that's a heterosexual assumption and a trope that we see far too frequently in the media. Spoiler alert, Claire tells me that the two get together by the 5th book, and my reaction was, oh, friends for 5 years and then romantic partners? Sounds like my MO. And I then laughed, ha 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 ha, right? So between that coming up in the episode, some personal experience, and discussions in my gender communication class, it felt like it was time to enter the friend zone and blow up that bullshit, because does it really exist? Truly, I think what we're discussing is a host of related ideas, including unrequited love, rejection, gender stereotypes, and friendship. But let's break it down, starting with what usually overshadows it, and that's the trendy friend zone. You know, I love my Urban Dictionary because it gives us a cultural perspective, right? So according to Urban Dictionary, the friend zone is, quote, a particularly aggravating metaphorical place that people end up in when someone they are interested in only wants to be friends. It is impossible to get over someone while in the friend zone because as friends, you still see them too often for them to be erased from your memory, and yet you cannot be with them the way that you want. So person 1, hypothetically, how would you react if I told you I like you? Person 2, I'm sorry, I don't mean to hurt you, but I want to just be friends. And then person 1 is now in the friend zone, end quote. And there's so much out there that would suggest the friend zone does exist. Just type into Google Images friend zone and be ready to be horrified. I mean, okay, I laughed because if we ain't laughing, we crying. So I had to be laughing. But there are so many images making fun of liking someone and then getting the, aw, thanks, I love you too, like a brother. I found a bunch. So here's an e-card. It says, you've been told that you're a great listener, you're talented, and you're a real catch. You have entered the friend zone. Another graphic that says you might be in the friend zone if, and the friend zone is mimicking the Twilight Zone as if it's some like crazy place that people would be and all these weird things happen. But it says you might be in the friend zone if you finish a whole movie during Netflix and chill. So I guess Netflix and chill is not actually about watching Riverdale and just chilling while you watch The Amazing Jughead and Betty, Veronica, and Archie. Can you tell I've been binge watching it? It also says you might be in the friend zone if, quote unquote, friend, you're exclusively called pal, buddy, or best friend. Your hand prominently hovers over their shoulder in all of your photos. And you frequently find yourself helping them shop. So that's one particular image. Another one has an image of a girl with her head on a guy's shoulder, and it says friend zone. Keep telling yourself it is better than nothing. Then there's a picture of Blake Lively. I don't know if it's supposed to be Blake Lively, if it's supposed to be her character from Gossip Girl, but it says, when a girl replies with, "Aw, thanks," it means she's politely asking you to return to the friend zone that you just tried to escape from. So now we're escaping as if it's like a prison or someplace that you are banished to by a girl with the cell phone that says, "Aw, thanks." Sorry, that reminded me of the Vine. "Oh, an avocado, thanks." Like, that's their friend zone, right? Okay, here is another one. It says friend zone. You walked right into it, and it's a text message. It says, "Let's be something more than friends." And they say, "What? Best friends?" Smiley face. "No, I mean something more than that." "Mega best friends?" Question mark, smiley face. So I guess there isn't anything more than mega best friends. Here's another one. A couple more. Girlfriend, spelled as one word, and then girl-friend. The difference between girlfriend and girlfriend is the little space in between we call the friend zone. And then the last one is from 9gag off of Instagram, and I use this in my classes, and it says the most populated places in the world. Number 1, China. 2, India. 3, friend zone. 4, United States. And 5, Indonesia. So it's one of those things that it does exist because people says it exists. We say this through media and using that terminology. So are we creating a phenomenon? So let's dig into it a little bit more because I got some feelings about this, as you might imagine. In a 2011 Psychology Today article entitled "Escape the Friend Zone, from friend to girlfriend or boyfriend. Go from friend to girlfriend or friend to boyfriend." In this article, Dr. Jeremy Nicholson describes the situation as, quote, where one individual in a friendship develops more intense feelings and wants to become more than friends with the other person. More often than not, the other person is unaware of the friend's desires and quite happy in the friendship-only arrangement, end quote. So in the scenario then, the person with intense feelings cannot get out of the friendship zone. But is that because, A, they've never said anything? Right? So we were just talking about this today in class. Language that younger folks use that maybe older folks can't use. And something I've seen a lot lately is, "I need to shoot my shot. I didn't shoot my shot," which is basically saying you didn't take your chance. And so if the friend you have feelings for doesn't know, well, then you will always be friends because they don't know. And as I like to say, you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. So if you've never said anything and you've never taken a chance, you never shoot your shot or whatever. I'm too old for that, I think. Another reason might be their friend has a romantic partner, so they've never said anything because of that other relationship. Or C, maybe they don't want to ruin their friendship. So there could be lots of reasons why people might not express their feelings to their friend, as well as just putting ourselves out there is pretty risky. And so what I think Nicholson is saying is that you will always be in the friend zone because they never know. So he goes on to say that the friend zone situation happens because all relationships are what we consider to be a social exchange. And as someone who studies interpersonal communication, and we talk about theories of interpersonal communication, we do talk about something called social exchange theory. We look at costs and rewards. What can you offer me? What can I offer you? And sure, we can break it down like that. My friends provide me social support, and I do the same. That is a social exchange. That is a friendship exchange. However, when we add in mixed-gendered friendships in a society with a heterosexual bias, does that exchange come down to one person wanting sex and the other one not wanting sex? I agree that when someone is liked or crushed on by someone else, they have more power, and they are probably reaping all sorts of benefits of that friendship. But in some ways, it seems like being in the friend zone is saying that there are absolutely no benefits to being friends with a person unless it is exactly what you want, whether the other person is interested or not. And I think that's a falsehood, that assuming that a friendship can't be rewarding for someone who does not get interest or romantic affection out of a friendship, right? That there's still some sort of qualities that you like about the person. You probably enjoy that person for a lot of different reasons. And so I think that there is a power differential, but I think the friend zone assumes that there are no benefits by being friends with someone. And hosting a friendship podcast, I'm going to have to disagree. The author of this article indicates simple ways to get out of the friend zone that focus on renegotiating the relationship. So I kind of read it as, and sometimes love does feel like a business deal. You're like on the golf, I was about to say golf court, but I don't think, what do you call it? You're golfing. I don't know. What do people do during business deals? Drink martinis and golf. I've been watching too much Gilmore Girls. I really don't know. But it's like you're out there making deals like you are for your company. And so I think it can sound a little cold or too practical or too, I got my lawyer here, let's negotiate our friendship to a new romantic relationship. To me, it can sound a little icky, and maybe that's just me. Yes, all relationships do have an exchange of both tangible and intangible qualities. If we take my parents and me, for example, for the first 18 years, and let's be real, beyond, they've provided me lots of financial support, right? There's no way at 3 I can make things happen. So they're getting me food and clothes and getting me around and stuff and doing the parent things for kids, right? And then they've also provided me with love and acceptance and support through all the things I've done in life. That's intangible. We have those things in friendships as well. We have those things in romantic relationships. We have those things in workplace relationship. But one of the issues can be when those qualities are not reciprocated, right? And so, parents probably don't expect that when you turn 18, they're like, well, here's your bill. That was $500,000 from birth to now. I don't know, maybe it's more expensive. I haven't punched the numbers lately. But there is an exchange that, as they age, that I would be there to help take care of them, right? That if my friend is struggling, that I'll do what I can to help them. But in any relationship where we don't feel like we're being reciprocated could be problematic, right? And if you have really intense feelings for your friend, you're in love with them, you want to move from friends to romantic partners, and then you don't feel like all the things that you do for them as a friend are reciprocated, that can feel even worse. So Dr. Nicholson suggests some strategies, and these strategies include to be less interested, right? Play it cool. You don't have to be like, hi, I got a crush on you. And then it's painfully obvious that I love you, right? So you can be less interested, play it cool, The second thing is make yourself scarce. Have some other plans. You don't always have to be around, right? When I was in high school, you have a crush on a boy. It's like, where their locker is or what their class schedule is. Not because I'm like breaking into the principal's office like I'm Veronica Mars trying to solve a case, but it's just kind of, you had class together, you walk out, you see where his locker is. So maybe you use the bathroom by that locker. Maybe you talk to a friend that's by that locker just because you want to be around that person. And we talk about this idea in my interpersonal class. It's called mere exposure. The more often that someone sees you, the more familiar they are with you. And we're comfortable with familiar people. So we might be attracted to people who are around us and that we see a lot because we feel comfortable with them. But Dr. Nicholson says you want to get out of that friend zone, make yourself scarce. I guess your friend is going to have to come find you, right? You could create some competition. Maybe you got another crush and you're going to put some time into that crush and not crush on this person so much. You can figure out ways to get them to invest in your friendship. And so maybe there's ways to figure out how they might I don't know, like if you're spending more time planning things, that you put it on them to plan things, and that shows that they're invested. And then the last thing that Dr. Nicholson says in his 2011 article is that you could be more rewarding. And so that might be like, what are you offering to them as a friend or potentially as a romantic partner? In a follow-up 2013 Psychology Today article written by the same author, it's entitled Avoiding the Friend Zone, Becoming a Girlfriend or Boyfriend, How to Stop Falling into the Let's Just Be Friends in the Friend Zone. So he revisits the friend zone idea in this article and continues with advice by suggesting that we could present ourselves as more attractive. And I know right away you're going to be like, do you mean time to get your hair did, time to get this going? I think attractive just means, in the sense here, that being a more enjoyable friend, being ready to have fun, maybe it is getting your hair did, I don't know, but it also can include other things to be more appealing, right? The second thing is finding a match. This deals with matching hypothesis. So the idea is that we might have crushes on people that are more attractive than us, but we typically end up in relationships to people who are similar. So maybe it's finding a way to be more similar to that person, or maybe it's finding some other match. You could be bold and ask, hey, there's a novel idea. Hey, we've been friends for a long time, and sometimes I catch some feelings. I don't know how you're feeling. And they could be like, I have not caught those feelings. And you could be like, noted, right? Is it better to know or to not know? I mean, some people enjoy that, well, if I never ask, then I never have to be rejected and I never have to be hurt. So I can always just have this fantasy in my head. But what does that do for you? What does that do for your well-being? What does that do for the possibility of other relationships? And knowing, on the other hand, can be painful, but at least you know, and then it's sort of, you can figure out maybe what a plan of action could be based on that. And then the final piece of advice is make them do more work, which I think is a little bit in line with getting them to invest from the previous article. And what he's saying is that sometimes when we like someone, we're too nice to them. And I mean, I can buy into that. It's like, oh, I'll do that for you. Oh, just a little favor, sure. Or just being extra smiley and nice, and I got extra laughs for you. I mean, we got crushes, right? And so this is some of the advice. He is a psychologist, Dr. Nicholson, and his advice is rooted in research that I talk about in my relationship classes. But I wonder if this is the best way to approach when people have mismatched feelings. For example, the first set of strategies from the 2011 article seem a little bit more manipulative or more in the realm of quote-unquote testing the other person, right? Be less interested. Make yourself scarce. It reminds me of, oh gosh, what is the book? Oh, this is going to bother me. I talk about this in my gender class, and it's the Rules book, right? Maybe that's what it's called. It's called The Rules. And it's just all the ways to get a man. So this reminds me of The Rules, which is a book. It's called The Rules, Time-Tested Secrets for Capturing the Heart of Mr. Right by Ellen Feen and Sherry Schneider. And if you look inside this book, which I like to do in my gender class, is going through the rules of how to get a man, right? So I'll give you just a taste of this, and I'll link the book in my show notes if you'd like to read more, okay? So it says, rule number 1, be a creature unlike any other. To be honest, I don't know what the hell that means. Rule number 2, don't talk to a man first and don't ask him to dance. Rule number 3, don't stare at men or talk too much. Rule number 4, don't meet him halfway or go Dutch on a date. Rule number 5, don't call him and rarely return his calls. Rule number 6, always end phone calls first. Rule number 7, don't accept a Saturday night date after Wednesday. I mean, I'm all about just accepting a Saturday night date, but whatever. Rule number 8, fill up your time before the date. Rule number 9, how to act on dates 1, 2, and 3. And then we got the next rule, how to act on dates 4 through commitment time, which sounds like there might be a range, but I'm not sure. Rule number 11, always end the date first. Rule number 12, stop dating him if he doesn't buy you a romantic gift for your birthday or Valentine's Day. I just like to pause here and remind people that there are 365 days in a year, and we can maintain and pursue relationships every single one of those days and not just on holidays or anniversaries or birthdays. Just a PSA for today. Rule number 13, don't see him more than once or twice a week. I'm just reading these all because these are great. Rule number 14, no more than casual kissing on the first date. What year was this written? Rule number 15, don't rush into sex and other rules for intimacy. Rule number 16, don't tell him what to do. Rule number 17, let him take the lead. I'm not sure if that's in life or dancing or what. Rule number 18, don't expect a man to change or try to change him. I mean, that seems just like good advice for people in general. We can really only change ourselves, am I right? Rule number 19, don't open up too fast. Rule number 20, be honest but mysterious. Rule number 21, accentuate the positive in other rules for personal ads. I think now they mean Match.com and Tinder, but, I didn't write this. Rule number 22, don't live with the man or leave your things in his apartment. Rule number 23, don't date a married man. Seems like good advice all the way around. Rule number 24, slowly involve him in your family and other rules for women with children. Okay. Rule number 25, practice, 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 or getting good at the rules. Oh, there's still more. Rule number 26, even if you're engaged or married, you still need the rules. Rule number 27, do the rules even when your friends and parents think it's nuts. Rule number 28, be smart and other rules for dating in high school. And when I talk about this in class, I just want to clarify, I think this chapter is specifically for people who are in high school and dating and not for people who are looking to date high school aged individuals. Just wanted to clarify. Rule number 29, take care of yourself and other rules for dating in college. Rule number 30, next and other rules for dealing with rejection. Actually, I have this book at school because I use it in classrooms, so I will read this chapter and do a little Patreon video for you folks so we can talk a little bit more because rejection is critical to this episode. Rule number 31, don't discuss the rules with your therapist. I don't know. Seems like the person you should be talking to. Rule number 32, don't break the rules. Rule number 33, do the rules and you'll live happily ever after. Rule number 34, love only those who love you. That might be relevant to this episode. Rule number 35, be easy to live with. Wow, what a roller coaster. 35 rules sounds like a lot, but that's what I'm saying. Like this, when I was reading the rules here, some of those things like end the calls first or don't make dates for Saturday after Wednesday. There's all these rules where it's, if you like someone, you like someone. If you don't like someone, you don't like someone. So why can't we be more direct about it? Why do we have to do all these, make yourself scarce or, be a creature unlike any other, right? Like, why can't we just be ourselves, right? Okay. The second article by Nicholson does get at being a little bit more forward so you can be direct and be bold and ask or talk about having feelings for your friend because we won't know unless we put ourselves out there. And that's scary. How will they respond? Will they laugh? Will they be disgusted? But again, when we have these mismatched feelings, is there any way for it to end well if the only good response for someone who has these intense feelings is for the other person to feel the exact same way about you? And what are the odds that's going to happen? I mean, if we only think of one particular factor that might be critical here, that's timing. Timing alone is huge when it comes to romantic relationships, and that doesn't consider all the other things that might come into play. So what are the odds that when you have a crush or more intense feelings for a friend, what are the odds that they would feel the same way? So actually, friend zoning is something that I think is a cultural phenomenon, vernacular that we use. I think we use it to insult people. I think we use it to threaten people. I think we use it as a way just simply to make people feel bad for liking and not liking someone, not shooting their shot or not the shot hitting the target, if that's the metaphor I'm going with here. But what I actually think is that when we talk about friend zoning, we're actually talking about the phenomenon called unrequited love. And so this is a sad, again, For not laughing, we're crying. This quote is from Alice Hoffman. It's a little devastating. Unrequited love is so boring. Weeping under a blue-black sky is for suckers or maniacs. So what does she mean? Okay, let's get into it. I think we're actually talking about unrequited love, which is one of my favorite class topics in the dark side of interpersonal communication. I have my students read a chapter out of Brian Spitzberg and Bill Cupach's 1998 The Dark Side of Close Relationships book, entitled To Love or Be Loved in Vain, The Trials and Tribulations of Unrequited Love. The authors Bratslavsky, Baumeister, and Sommer define unrequited love as, quote, passionate love felt by one person toward another person who does not desire romantic involvement with the would-be lover. This is what is referred to as unrequited love. So you can see it as one-sided love. Similarly, Urban Dictionary, here we go again, describes it as, quote, unrequited love is hell. All you do is spend your days thinking of someone who will never think of you. You do anything for that person, and they'll do nothing for you. You can't forget them, and that's tearing you apart. Unrequited love is like waiting. Oh my God. Whoever wrote this just has a way with words. Okay, last sentence to Urban Dictionary. Unrequited love is like waiting for an airplane at a train station. Oh my gosh, ouch. That one just, for some reason, just right to the heart. Right to the heart. I don't know. I think there was another quote where it's like, drowning and no one will save you. I don't know. There's like lots of different metaphors on Urban Dictionary, but this one, wow, waiting for an airplane at a train station. Guess what? You're not going to get to your destination. And I think that's the point about unrequited love, unfortunately. Bratslavsky and her colleagues talk about the two players in unrequited love, and that includes the would-be lover and the rejecter. So I'd like to talk about those folks a little bit more. I'll start with the would-be lover, and all of this is summarized from that article, which is an academic article, and it's located in show notes. And I sort of bullet pointed to kind of talk through it, and then I add a couple things that me and my students have added in through our discussions. So would-be lovers are typically platonic friends. We tend to fall, if we're a would-be lover, we fall upward, which means falling in love with someone more attractive than ourselves. So when I was talking about the matching hypothesis a minute ago, I talked about how we might instantly fall in love with someone who's more attractive than us, but that typically in relationships, we're more similar in attractiveness and personality, things like that. We're more matched. Those would-be lovers' feelings start to blossom, especially if they might have gone out on a date. So these feelings can start really early on. They believe they see a sign or receive a message from the rejecter that they should stick around or that they have a chance, which reminds me of Dumb and Dumber when she's like, there's like 1 in a million chance. And he's like, so you're telling me there's a chance, right? Would-be lover isn't going to care about ridiculous 1 in trillion, billion, gazillion. You're telling me there's a chance, so I'm just going to stick around for the next 10 years if that's cool. Self-esteem is especially going to happen to would-be lovers if the rejection comes after the two get to know each other. So if they do date a little bit, sometimes it starts out as friendship, sometimes it starts out at dating, and you feel more like friends, or at least from the rejecter point of view. So that esteem hit can come especially after it's like, oh, I got to know you, but you know what, I don't really like you, or I don't like you as much as you like me, and that can kind of be just like a knife to the heart, right? So self-esteem is a central emotion for would-be lovers. They might devalue themselves when they're being rejected, so we can get into that path of negative talk that we never feel like we'll be loved, that no one cares about us, that we're never going to find a partner. There's all sorts of things that can happen. And that rejection does carry what the authors call an implicit negative message of unequal attractiveness and inferiority. So as a would-be lover, that we might feel unattractive in comparison to the person that we love and that we feel inferior to them, which can lead to humiliation, but it can also lead to being actively pursuing that person persistently, right? They might try to win over the rejecter. And so this would be an example of any of those grand gestures that we see in movies. Some of the examples that I show in class And I do have to say, would-be lovers happen more often to be men, and we'll talk about that in a second. But most of my examples are of men as well. So in the movie Love Actually, there is a character whose best friend is getting married, and he's in love with his best friend's bride-to-be. And so he does all these things at the wedding to like make a big deal out of it. And he records the video of the wedding. But when she comes to get the tape, he says he doesn't have it. And when she finally watches it, what she realizes that basically he's just recorded her because he's just desperately in love with her. And so the famous scene in Love Actually is when he knocks on the door and she goes down and he has a sign that says, tell them that they're carolers. And the husband's upstairs. He's like, tell him to bugger off. And so he hits play and they're caroler singing, and he holds up these signs about how she is perfect and that he's sort of like, this is enough, right? Like, it's this grand gesture to say this is how I feel, but then this is it. And she kisses him, which maybe not the best idea of a rejecter to do because she is married. So it's kind of like, maybe don't do that. But I think she's saying like, thank you for loving me. I appreciate everything you've done for me. And after she kisses him, just like a quick kiss on the mouth, a thank you, he walks away and he goes, enough, right? Like that is when he finally finds some closure. The second grand gesture, it's a personal favorite, is from the John Hughes movie Pretty in Pink, starring Molly Ringwald and John Cryer. And John Cryer is Molly Ringwald's best friend in the movie. He plays Ducky, and she plays Andy. And she actually likes this guy, Blaine, who likes her back, and they're going to go out on a date. And so she's waiting for Blaine to show up at her workplace, which is a record store. And her boss plays Otis Redding. John, little tenderness. That's all you get. That's all you're going to get. But he comes in and he does this whole choreographed dance to this Otis Redding song. And I mean, I love Otis. Who doesn't love Otis? He loves Otis. And then it's like, he's like, all right, Andy, I just did this big show and dance for you. Let's go hang out because we're best friends and this is what we do. And she's kind of like to her boss, do you ever have anyone like this? And so they kind of get in a fight, and he's actually mean to her when he realizes that she's going out on a date with Blaine. There are certainly lots of issues, like he's considered to be a richie, and they're poor, and that those groups can't like cross-contaminate or something. They can't. I guess contamination would indicate like toxic, that they can't mesh together, I guess would be a better way to say it. And so he basically says, I live to love you, but I can't love you anymore if you're going to be with Blaine. And that's really hurtful as like a friend, right? Like, so she loses a friend because she's not responding to these grand gestures, and that she actually likes this Blaine guy. Both are great movies. Love Actually is probably one that's on your Christmas list or holiday list for movie viewing. And so I might say take note of the unrequited love that takes place. Is it really friend zoning? Are we talking more about unrequited love? And then you definitely need to check out Pretty in Pink. If you've never seen it, you won't regret it. If you have seen it, another viewing, you won't regret it. Okay. Some other things about the would-be lover, besides trying to win them over, another path they could take is just like giving up passively, which gives them no chance at happiness. So then they go back to being more active and persistent. A lot of times would-be lovers can feel silly, foolish, stupid, embarrassed. Like, why did I say anything? Why did I do this stupid thing? Why did I message them? Why did I do my hair? Why did I do the Otis Redding song? Why did I only film her at the wedding? And a lot of times, as a way to make a would-be lover feel better, they might derogate the rejecter. But that doesn't happen as much as they might derogate a rival, like Blaine. In Pretty in Pink, he's like, his name is Blaine. Blaine isn't a name. It's a major appliance, right? And so Ducky's going to spend more time, although he was mean to Andy, he's going to spend more time derogating Blaine because that's his rival in the situation than he will to the person that he's in love with. So in terms of feelings, although the central idea is self-esteem and they can be humiliation and embarrassment, the feelings truly range from elation to feeling those feelings of love. Maybe you get some sort of attention from them, a look, or you hang out because you're friends and you have these feelings, all the way to despair because of any rejection that might come. So one of the things to keep in mind for would-be lovers are that rejectors tend not to come back for forgiveness and love, no matter how long someone might wait around for them. There is a real clear script for would-be lovers to follow because they are all over movies, books, TV, music. There's always these grand gestures, these big sort of "I love you" and isn't that what we just want in life? And romantic comedies are those grand gestures for someone that we've loved for so long to say they love us back. And so we definitely spin the would-be lovers positive. We put a lot of weight on them in terms of giving them attention, kind of hyping them up, like, oh man, like, yeah, shoot your shot. Okay, I really need to stop saying that. Like, we hype up those people, like, go get them, right? And so there is a lot of support for would-be lovers based on our culture. And another point culturally is that, as I mentioned before, and this is something that me and my students talk about, is because men are historically more likely to be initiators, they're more likely to be would-be lovers, which means because they're initiators, they're more likely to be rejected, because they're more likely to put themselves out there because that was, quote unquote, the gender norms. That's the role of the man. I mean, obviously, we're talking about heterosexual bias. There can be completely different processes that we'd be talking about if you're talking about, relationships outside the binary, right? Outside of heterosexual relationships. So we do take a heterosexual bias here. But I think this is where the friend zone comes in. That's more frequently used to describe men who've been rejected by their friends, which adds several gender implications. If a man is paying attention to a woman, does that entitle the man to a date or a relationship? And the answer is capital N, capital O, period, no, right? And so I think that is critical to understanding the difference between this trend of friend zoning and truly understanding unrequited love and dealing with it and coping with it. So let's talk about the other player in unrequited love, and that is the rejector. They're also typically a platonic friend. They're not in love with the person, or they might be in love with someone else. They might be in a relationship, or they might have their own crush. They might be the would-be lover in another relationship, right? Their feelings typically stay the same. So if they did go out on the date, they might not see the person in the romantic light after the date, and so they kind of want to keep things as they are. And this might be when they begin to withdraw, because it can be a very distressing situation for them to break off a relationship that they willingly created. Like they might have asked someone out, or they agreed to go out on a date, or that they've been friends for a really long time. And as we know, friendships are voluntary. So that can be really hard to break off a relationship. They can become frustrated and confused. They might not be sure why they lost interest or are not interested in someone. And they report respecting, admiring, and liking the would-be lovers. They just might not have the same sexual or romantic feelings. And so therefore, they feel a whole lot of guilt for not returning the other's affections. And so what they end up doing is they actively inflict suffering through rejection. They passively play along. They might not say anything. And so therefore, that might be a sign to a would-be lover that that's the evidence they need. That central problem is around feeling guilt. They've been on the other side of unrequited love. They've been crushing on someone, so they know they don't want to hurt someone. And it is simply difficult to reject another's love. It's really hard to do. Sometimes it's just finding the words, finding the timing, not taking too long, not letting the person believe they've been ghosted. There's so many factors to take into account. It's a lot for a rejector to balance, right? And so they feel a lot of obligation towards the would-be lover, and they can start to display some justification strategies. In some cases, they might derogate the would-be lover as a way to be like, we need to separate this. They might absolve themselves of any sort of responsibility, like this person is in love with me, but that doesn't mean I have to be in love with them. Or they start to think about doing what's best for the would-be lover. And sometimes that might be playing along, that might be rejecting. There could be a whole host of things that they think might be best for the would-be lover. But here's the thing. All options are nearly bad, right? And there isn't so much a script like there is for the would-be lovers with all the grand gestures, all the things we see in movies. But instead, what we get from the media is that rejectors are often seen as cold-hearted, that they're seen as mean, they're bitches, they're assholes, they won't give anyone a chance. And so that is something that we'll talk about, but it could be something that we need to change. And then finally, as we talked about with would-be lovers, because if we're talking about heterosexual relationships and historically men are more likely to be initiators, then they're more likely to be would-be lovers, which then means that women are more likely to be rejectors. Often they might be pressured to give someone a chance even when they have a partner. So they're in a committed relationship and someone will be like, well, you're not married. Yeah, but we've been dating for 7 years and I live with them. So why would I go out on a date with someone? They could say that they have no interest in a relationship at a current time because of a breakup, because of focusing on work or school. That might not matter. And certainly there have been cases, extreme cases, where when a woman has turned down a man, has rejected a man, there have been injuries or fatalities. Okay? And so although that might be an extreme case, that's certainly a danger of rejection for women when we think about the gendered implications. A couple other things about unrequited love. Both people participate in the conspiracy of silence, which is outlined in the same article. Conspiracy of silence is basically like the would-be lover doesn't want to put it out there so they can't be rejected, and then the rejector doesn't want to be mean, so everyone's just like not saying anything, and it's like, hey, what about that elephant in the room? What elephant? I don't know what you're talking about. And then what happens is everyone's pretty much dissatisfied. So, some conclusions. The would-be lovers are more embarrassed, but remember both positive and negative aspects of the experience. And the rejectors are more likely to experience only negative feelings and have a difficult time trying to find anything to appreciate. So there is definitely an imbalance of feelings between would-be lovers and rejectors. Would-be lovers and rejectors perceive the pattern of events surrounding the unrequited love experience differently. So would-be lovers would say, I received mixed messages, whereas rejectors were like, I was pretty clear. So then if you think that you were receiving mixed messages, then you could assume that the rejector is leading you on. But the rejectors don't see it that way. So there is some confusion, but if you go back to the conspiracy of silence, you can see how there could be even more confusion, which is where we end, right? Many learned from the experiences they behaved in ways that were inconsistent with normal established patterns of behaviors. Would-be lovers were overly pushy and they were surprised by this behaviors. Rejectors felt like they violated kindness behaviors. And that was all from the academic article, The Trials and Tribulations of Unrequited Love, which is in the show notes. And all I can say is, yikes, okay? How can anyone feel good about being on either side of the check the box note? Me or that kid that I gave it to in the 6th grade, because there's a lot of negative aspects for a would-be lover, and there seems to be nothing good at all for rejectors. And I think that's something that's really important to consider. But as I mentioned previously, Nicholson talked about this idea of social exchange of tangible and intangible qualities. And it also could lead into this idea that friend zoning deals with what we call under-benefited and over-benefited relationships. So I briefly wanted to talk about that. Liking someone who doesn't reciprocate my feelings is kind of the worst, and I think there is one really important to pull out of that article. As a reminder, he talked about relationships being social exchanges and that those with more power, i.e. the rejector, may be reaping more benefits than the would-be lover. And it's not because the rejector isn't being a good friend and giving all sorts of wonderful benefits like support, acceptance, and enjoyment. However, sometimes the rejector does get more because when you like someone, aren't you like doing everything you can for them? And when you, as a would-be lover, hope for more, then it seems like they'll always make out with more from your friendship than you will. So in my interpersonal relationship classes, we talk about underbenefited and overbenefited relationships. When we exchange intangible and tangible qualities, sometimes someone puts in way more than the other partner or friend. When you're that person giving more, you feel underbenefited. Benefits should be equal, or there should be reciprocation, tit for tat, back and forth, a dance of some sort, not a checklist like, oh, I've taken out the trash 17 times this year and you've only done 4. So you need to get it together. It might be like, I take out the trash after you clean the dishes. Boom. That's what we call benefits, right? It may be an equal benefit, right? So when you do feel underbenefited, you're not receiving all the rewards of the relationship, and people in this position can be frustrated, disappointed, sad, and so much more. And on top of that, if you're crushing and not getting crushed back, it can even feel worse. On the other hand, someone who gets a lot of benefits in a relationship or friendship would be considered to be over-benefited. They're getting way more benefits than the other person. Sometimes people really enjoy reaping all the benefits, but sometimes, and I think this is really important, over-benefited people feel really guilty for getting so many benefits or the love, attention, etc. So we shouldn't assume that a rejector is always about getting what they want and then stomping like all over the one that loves them. They can feel awful and may not know how to gracefully bow out or decline such benefits without hurting others' feelings. And let's be real here. How can you reject someone without hurting their feelings? What does that message include verbally? How do you say it? What's the tone? What are the nonverbals? Even if the message is appropriate, thoughtful, and kind, it can still hurt someone, and most rejectors want to avoid that. So does rejection hurt? Hell yes. But again, let's be clear about a few things. Number 1, rejection is a part of life. In romantic relationships and friendships, in the workplace, online, we have to be more comfortable with it happening, because if we hide from it all the time, then in a situation like a really important relationship or a really important job, when rejection takes place, it could destroy us. Number 2, rejection should not be delayed to give someone a chance, to appease anyone, to do anyone a favor, to not hurt someone's feelings, or to, try feelings on for size, right? If you do not like someone, you do not like someone. It's the same thing. I like you, but I can't make you like me back, right? The only thing I can do is control myself. And so I would just think that if you delay it, you delay the pain and the frustration and the guilt and the self-esteem hits and all the things that we discussed. Number 3, rejection is hard for the rejector too. Okay, some people relish in it. As one of my students would say, it sucks to suck. Most people will do whatever they can to reject people in a kind way, but then may move to a more direct or quote-unquote meaner way if that would-be lover is persistent. So as a would-be lover, being clear on signs that are being sent. If people are saying no, or, you're not meeting up, the calls aren't getting answered, there might be signs to indicate to you that, this isn't going to work out, and that persistency, is that a word? That being persistent can be problematic. Number 4, no is a complete sentence. No, period. If someone is not interested, they're not interested. They don't have to be interested. They don't need a reason to not be interested. They are not a bitch. They are not an asshole. They owe us nothing. They owe you nothing. Number 5, if we head back to the theme of this podcast, one of the things that we discuss a lot is scripts, and we need to discuss rejection scripts. Do we have a script for 1, rejecting another person, or 2, responding to rejection? I ask my students to tell me what should be or should not be in a rejection, then to write those messages, then they have to get up and reject me face to face. It's a super fun day, and I hope the point that they get out of the class is that we do not have a script, that we don't reject people well, and we need to be better at it. So what can we do to be better at it? So in all those times that I've been rejected, there was one rejection. Now, obviously, I'm not in any we're doing hypothetical scenarios. So they're not technically rejecting me. They're rejecting me in that scenario. So there is a little bit of a disconnect, but this is anecdotal evidence. But I'll just say that over the several semesters I've done it, there was only one rejection where I truly felt okay about what I was hearing, where I felt like the way the person said it indicated that they cared about me and that they didn't want to hurt me, but that not saying anything would be worse. And I really appreciated that message. I was like, thank you. But one thing that we have agreed upon over the years is being careful with the use of compliments in a rejection, because a would-be lover might take that as a sign of a mixed message or evidence that there's a chance. So it can't be like, you're like the greatest guy I've ever met. However, right? If they're the greatest guy you've ever met, then why aren't you interested? It could be, I appreciate the things that you've done for me, the support we can provide each other, the friendship and all the time that we've enjoyed, and I would like to keep that going, right? It's not like, oh, you're the funniest person, you're the cutest person, you're so hot, you're this, you're that. All those things might be mixed messages. And so it makes me wonder, what do you think, folks? How would you reject a friend who wanted more, but you did not? Like, would you avoid it? Would you passively go along with it? Would you have a direct message? Do you think the use of compliments is helpful? Love to hear what you have to think. Number 6, overall, we need to work on our responses to rejection because aggressive, insulting, threatening messages won't work. Again, the person owes us nothing. No one is entitled to another person. They're not entitled to a date. They're not entitled to a relationship. And I think what we're starting to see, especially in online dating and Tinder, and if you go to the Instagram account by Philippe, where they have screenshots of people matching on dating apps, that you see quick, aggressive messages for rejection, and that's problematic. We don't need aggression. We don't need to feel unsafe when we're looking for a partner, right? And so I think that is truly problematic. I think about these things a lot. As a person who's had crushes, I think my intentions are good, that overall I'm a kind person, that I'm glad to know the person, that I feel like there's a lot of things that I appreciate about them, and that I do things in a way that I try not to make people feel uncomfortable about me liking them, that I don't assume anything from them. I don't expect anything from them. Doesn't mean there isn't some level of like, wouldn't that be nice, right? But I do think about, even though I think my intentions are good and I'm a kind person and that I'm just glad to know the person that I like, I do think about whether or not I back them into some sort of corner where they have to reject and thus may feel bad about it. And that kind of makes me feel bad. Like, I don't want to put anyone in a bad position. But as one of my professors said in graduate school to me, he said, you're conscientious to a fault. And maybe that's just another one of those circumstances. But so it really comes down to, like, what can we do? I think there are several things we can do. First, it seems necessary to reframe the idea of friend zoning. It's used as an insult and a threat to one's self-esteem, and more often than not, a threat of masculinity if men are the primary initiators and thus primary individuals to be rejected. When we spend time talking about friend zone, teasing people about friend zoning, labeling someone as being friend zone, it suggests that the rejecter has done something wrong, and that there is something inherently unlovable about the would-be lover. And I think that is not the case, right? We have not violated any rights of the would-be lover by being rejected. The rejecter has done nothing wrong. And there isn't anything inherently wrong with the would-be lover. Again, it could be a timing. It could be a chemistry thing. It could be, hey, I have a partner, so this wouldn't work even if I did like you, right? I'm committed to this person. We love who we love, and we can't make anyone love us, and we can't make ourselves love anyone else. So we just have to remember that. Second, we need to stop using words like this. Oh, we're just friends. You use this phrase to let others know a relationship is not romantic, and we can use it to reject a friend who has feelings for us. But using the word just takes away from friendship. There's nothing wrong with friendship. In fact, friendship in most cases is helpful to our overall health. We need friends throughout our life. So to use the word just devalues the relationships that mean the most to us. It makes the relationship inferior, which may contribute to the pain on either side, but can certainly contribute to friend zoning. Overall, our society could stop hyping would-be lovers. So being like, yeah, go after them, shoot your shot. Yeah, they'll totally say yes, all these things. Like, oh yeah, do that grand gesture. What do you need? You need me to do a parade for you? Yeah, I can help you out. Like, stop hyping would-be lovers, right? Like, let's be a little bit more realistic about it. We could also stop demonizing rejectors. Isn't it better to reject someone and be honest that you are not interested versus feeling forced into it, pretending or trying to force feelings and then have to reject them later? I would think that delayed rejection would be more hurtful. And we need to generate effective, appropriate, and compassionate ways to reject others. And to generate effective, appropriate, and compassionate ways to accept that rejection. It's a part of life, and it shouldn't paralyze us. It shouldn't suck up all of our energy. It shouldn't lead us down negative paths that are not useful in the long term in terms of our health and relationships. Can we feel hurt by rejection? Absolutely. Should we let it end us? Absolutely not. So in 2015, Diane Barth wrote the article, 6 Ways to Get Past the Pain of Unrequited Love. The hurt is real, but you're not alone. And this was also found in Psychology Today. She gives some excellent points worth considering if you're the would-be lover on the end of rejection, which I'm sure most of us have been there. First, she says there's no way around the fact that rejection hurts. And I really like this quote. Rejection hurts, your heart has been broken, and there's a real physical sensation of pain. Even though that your heart can't really break, you're feeling like it's doing exactly that. There's a physical pain in your chest, and the rest of your body feels bruised and aching as well. End quote. So we're going to have some days where we're not feeling 100 because we've been rejected. And there's just no way around it. It's not like, I mean, some people might be more prepared for it than others, but overall, rejection is going to sting at least to some degree for everyone. Next, she indicates the world is full of us. We are not alone. So Roy Baumeister, who is a psychologist and was also one of the authors on the Unrequited Love article I referred to, says that 98% of us have experienced unrequited love at some time or another. Join the club, friends. Unrequited love, party for all of us. Party of not one, not just me. So a party for 98% of us because we've experienced it at some time or another. When we start to beat ourselves up and think there's something wrong with us because we've been rejected, we should stop and be like, no, we're human. We cared about someone and the timing wasn't right. The chemistry wasn't right. I wasn't right for them. Whatever it might be, it's okay. And it's okay to know that there are so many other people that are right there along with you, probably including the person who is currently rejecting you, which makes it even harder for them to do the rejection. Okay, so this one is rough. Okay, stick with me, friends. She suggests determining if we have a pattern in our life where we fall for people who don't love us back. If we've been rejected before or have experienced abandonment, we may find ourselves living out a self-fulfilling prophecy that people reject us, and then we think that, and then we fall in love for someone who's likely to reject us. Although not in this article, there's also another related idea that I think is critical here, is that a lot of people experience romantic anxiety. I mean, have you seen online and dating apps? Online dating and those dating apps is enough to make anyone go, I'm all set, thanks. I've got my friends. I've got my celebrity crushes. They can't reject me if they don't know I exist, David Beckham. So one of the things with romantic anxiety, it can be easier to crush on people than put ourselves out there for rejection. And you're probably thinking, but wait, they're still being rejected. And that is true. But they might be rejected at the very beginning before anything serious in terms of intimacy and closeness An investment can grow between the two, and thus they try to protect themselves from being hurt by either being rejected early on or not dating at all. I'll be talking more about romantic anxiety and how that relates to the development of friendships when we get closer to February. It'll be part of my Valentine's Day special. I'll have a whole month of Valentine's Day related topics that deal with friendship, because friendship matters even on Valentine's Day. So the author also notes what I've mentioned before. Keep in mind, rejecting someone is not as easy. So the rejector may be going through a lot of guilt during the experience. Basically, it's not puppy dogs, ice cream, or rainbows for anyone. And I think this is helpful to remember. Would-be lovers hope for that love and affection, but at the same time, would you like to get love and affection if it wasn't in fact real? Because they were trying to make it work, which leads to that greater rejection later? Probably not. If you like or love this person, do you want them to be backed into a corner where they have all this responsibility, obligation, and pain in which to reject you? I don't think so. Finally, Diane Barr talks about giving up on the idea of closure. Would-be lovers might be looking for evidence that their friend loves them, but it might never come. So we can either accept that this is our pattern in life, which makes me a little sad, going back to the idea of romantic anxiety, especially because I just believe so strongly that everyone deserves to be happy, healthy, and safe. And so if we accept this pattern, that means we might be stuck in this pattern, and that might mean that we're never happy, right? That we might have issues with health, and we might have issues with safety. And so that makes me a little sad. The other option is that we can move on, which might be hard, painful, and take some time. But it could also be just the question of, what does moving on mean? I think it's important for the would-be lover to consider their own well-being, but at the same time, consider they were friends with that person in the first place. Do you want them completely out of your life? Just gone, donezo, poof, gone, eliminated, unfriended, blocked. Ugh. Or do you want them there as a friend? If having them out of your life is the best option, then one must prepare also for experiencing the loss of friendship on top of the rejection. So it's not just rejection, then you're grieving a loss of someone that is no longer in your life, right? This can be tough, but of course it might be the option that is most feasible, especially if you're just constantly in pain around the other person, knowing that you'll never be able to be in a romantic relationship with them. On the other hand, what needs to happen might be to accept closure, even if it doesn't come from the friend. Sometimes we can create our own closure and say, much like the character in Love Actually, when he just says, he does his thing, and then he says, enough. And that was a closure for him, so that he can be sure that they remain friends with his best friend's wife, because he cares about her and he cares about his friend. So sometimes we just need to figure out the way to create our own closure so that we can move on and continue to be friends in whatever capacity we can be friends in. I always end episodes with a variation of the phrase, without our friends, who would we be? And I found it a little challenging to translate or adjust this statement for this particular topic, because without our friends that we love, we're rejected, right? But if we don't accept it and continue the friendship, would we be like, to me, there's just like a whole lot of connotations and implications that come from it. So I just want to say, think about what it means to be a would-be lover and what you do and what you can do to make it easier for yourself and the other person. If you're a rejecter, think about what's best for you and what you can do that's best for the other person. And both think about what is best for each other and the relationship. Because truly, if you didn't like them as a would-be lover, we wouldn't be in this case, right? They wouldn't be rejecting you if there wasn't some relationship to reject. And so think about the friendship, because without our friends, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
Hey everybody, this is Kelly Reynolds, and I'm the host of Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box. Join me for a new episode every Friday as we review romance novels with non-romance readers. From the sweet, loving fairy tale romances of the Highlands. Who cares about up against the wall by the fruit trees? Like, where's the dragon?
Inside the belly of a dragon.
To the naughty erotic threesomes with Navy SEALs.
Sex was a 10. I mean, you cannot get any better than this book. Come on, you guys.
Good.
Really.
We read it all. Check us out at Booby Podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. Listen to previous episodes on any podcast streaming platform. And stay tuned for our upcoming holiday series, The 12 Days of Boobsmas.